Hi everyone. So in today's video, we are going to see how we can create our own polyfill for deep cloning an object. So you must be using something like a structured clone or JSON.stringify, JSON.parse, that sort of thing. So we will see how we can create our own polyfill to achieve something like that. Firstly, let me show you like if we do not do deep cloning, what are the issues that might occur and what is shallow cloning. Let's see. Let me create an object first. Let object1 is equal to, this will have a key name, this will have age, let's say 10, and this will have another object, so I would say address. Inside this I will say city, let's say ABC, and country, let's say XYZ, right? And let's console log this object first, run code. Okay, so we are getting name the object completely here, right? Let object2, or let me call it as let copy object is equal to object1. So what we are doing here is we are directly assigning the reference of this object into this copy object variable. So if I do something like copy object dot age is equal to 15, and I will console log both the objects. Let's see. So first we have the copied object. So you see age 15, address, and this, and then we have our original object. In that also the age is changed because we are directly mutating the same object using that reference. Okay. So another way to deal around with this is, instead of directly assigning the reference, we can do something like this: dot 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 object1. So this is creating a shallow copy, and I will show you what that means exactly. So now let's run this code, and you will see in our copied object we are getting the age 15 correctly as we are updating it here, and in our original object the age is unchanged. So we have successfully created a shallow copy. But the catch here is, let's say if I try to uh, go deep inside nesting and I try to modify the address. So I will say address dot city is equal to PQR, right? And if I now run the code, so in our copied object we are having a city of PQR, but in our original object as well the city is modified. So you see, this shallow copy thing does not work on nested objects. I hope you get the difference. So now what people do usually is, so there are a couple of ways to deal around with this. First thing, the old fashioned thing is to say json.parse, json.stringify object1. So this will create a deep copy. Deep copy means like this nested objects also, if we try to modify it in the new object, so the original object will be unchanged. Let's see once. If I run the code, so you see in our copied object city is PQR, but in our original object the city is ABC. So we have successfully created a deep copy here. Another way to do is, I can simply say structured clone object1. So this is the new way to create a deep copy. If I run this code, so due to some reason structured clone is not being supported in this compiler. So I just switched my compiler real quick, and if I show you in this compiler, so I have just used structured clone to copy the first object, and I am mutating the address.city to PQR. And if I save it, so on the right side of console you can see this is the new object in which city is PQR, and this is the old object in which city is ABC. So you see, structured clone is also allowing us to create a deep copy of this object. Cool. So now we will see how we can create something like a structured clone by ourselves. Alright, so I will start by creating a function deep clone that will take an object that we will pass to it to create a deep copy of. Inside this, I will check if the object that I'm getting is null or the type of object is not equal to an object. Means we are getting some primitive value like a number or a string or a boolean, something like that. In that case, I will simply return whatever I am getting. I do not want to work with that. Apart from this, okay, so let me just quickly comment it as well. Primitive and null check. Cool. Second thing, we have to check for arrays. We have to check for arrays. So if array dot is array object, so whatever this deep clone object is receiving, if that is itself an array, right? So what I want to do is I want to simply map over this array and apply the deep clone function on it. So what I will do is I will say return object.map. For each item in this, I want to call deep clone recursively using that item. And as you know, map returns us a whole new array. So what will happen is, let's say I'm receiving an array here. It will go inside this and I will iterate over each item of the array. And for each item, I'm calling this deep clone. Let's say in that array, we have something like this. 1, 2, 3. So if we are running this deep clone recursively for each item, so we will first call this with 1. So item will have 1 and we are running deep clone. It will go here. So this will be 1 and this primitive check will be satisfied and we will return whatever we are getting here. So we will return 1 here and that 1 will be stored in the new array that map creates for us. Similarly for 2 and 3, this deep clone will run. We will receive that number here. This will be true because 1, 2, 3 are not an object. So this statement will be true. We will get inside and we will return 1, 2 or 3, whatever we are getting. And once we return it here, so it is creating a new array out of it and we are just returning that new array. I hope you understand. I will clear this. Finally, check for real objects, right? Firstly, I will create a new variable called clone object, which will be empty initially. And I will run a for loop for each of the properties that we have inside this object. So I will say for const every key in the object that I'm getting in initially. What I will do is I will check if object dot has own property. I will explain you why I'm doing this. Has own property key. Then what I want to do is I want to simply say cloned object of key is equal to deep clone object of key. And outside of this for loop, I will say return cloned object. Okay, so let me explain you what is this. Let's say while calling this deep clone object, so let's take this example only. So let's say I'm passing this whole object to this deep clone function. Now, okay, let me just zoom out a bit. Now, for every key inside this original object, I will iterate over each key. I will check if this object has its own property of key. That means you must be knowing about prototype chains in JavaScript, right? So like every object in JavaScript inherits from the object.prototype property. So we will be checking if this object that we are passing, the key, name, age, address belongs to this very object and not something that it has inherited. Let's say this object 1 inherits some additional properties from object.prototype chain. In that case, this condition will not work. This condition will check that whatever key we are iterating over, let's say name, age, address, this key belongs to this very object And yes, name, age, and address belong to this object, and these are not being inherited from some other parent object. I hope you understand. For that, what we are doing, so in this empty object, we are just adding a key called name, age, address one by one. And for each key, we are running this deep clone object again, which will return us the value, which it will take. Let's dry run it. So for the first time, I will see name coming here. So this condition will be true. So name key I'm iterating over. So here, what I'll do is I will create a key name here, and the value that I'm going to assign to it will depend on what this deep clone function is returning to me. So to this deep clone, I am passing the value of this key. So I'm passing Bhavuk to this deep clone object. This will go to this here, and this condition will satisfy because Bhavuk is not an object and it is not null. It is a primitive value. In that case, I will simply return Bhavuk, and that will be stored in this object that we are creating here. Right? Again, for age as well, I will add a new key here. The value of age 10 will be passed to this deep clone function. This deep clone function will take 10. It will check that this is not an object and this is not null. So it will return us 10 as it is, and I will store 10 as it is here. Let's say we reach address, and this time we are working on address key. So this is different. I will create a new key of address. This will go to this deep clone. It will check. Yes, this time this will not run because we are passing an object of address. So this thing will be run again. Right? I will be creating another empty object, and I will be iterating over these keys. Both keys will be inside that new object, and these primitive values will be returned as it is. So after I have returned this object, so this whole object will get stored inside the new address key that I have created. Right? So this will be the whole new object that I will be returning from the recursive call to deep clone function. Right? So that's how it will be different for nested objects. I hope you now understand how this nesting is working and how we are able to create a whole new object like a deep copy for this address as well, because we are recursively calling deep clone, and for each recursive call I am creating a new object. So these keys will form a new object altogether, and that will be returned to this address key. Right? Okay, enough of the talk. Now let's see if this is working. I will uncomment this. Instead of structured clone, I will say deep clone that I created. I'm doing again the same thing. For the copy object, I'm changing the city to be PQR. And first I'm consoling the copied object and then the original object. Let's see the copied object first. We have city as PQR because we modified it. And for this original object, we have the city of ABC, right? Because we have created a deep copy here. Okay, so let me just change another primitive value as well. Let's say I tweak the age to be 20. And if I now check the new object, so the age would be, yes, 20. And in the original object, the age is still 10. So this is working fine. I know this was a bit tricky, this thing like recursive function calling, but like if you dry run it once on your own, I'm sure that you will know how this is working actually. So we are just recursively calling this function. This is creating a new object. We are assigning it to the key that we were iterating on, and this is how the whole thing is working. I hope you understood the working of this polyfill. Thanks a lot for watching.